CNBC-TV18 and Intel present Business Comes Alive, Intelligence Everywhere. Moving on to our next Lightning Talk session on Intelligence Everywhere, AI and IoT to enable business. Our speaker for this session will be Dr. Santanu Bhattacharya, Chief Data Scientist, Airtel.
Hello, I'm Dr. Shantanu Bhattacharya. I'm the Chief Data Scientist at Airtel. I also have academic affiliations. I'm a visiting professor at the Indian Institute of Science, a visiting scientist at MIT, and I sit on the board of multiple startups and government bodies. Today, if you talk about intelligence, you can see intelligence is there everywhere. If you are wearing a watch, that probably has more intelligence today than the spacecraft that landed on the moon, Apollo 11. If you work in a building, there are intelligence systems all around you. Your lift is intelligent, your lights are slightly intelligent. If you go to a shopping mall, there's intelligence in everything from an escalator to the cameras that is monitoring the safety and the movement and so on. So how does that work? How did you get to a stage where we became sort of intelligent everywhere society? So in 1950s, what happened, the idea of the introduction of Turing test, which is the sort of the first test for understanding whether a machine is intelligent or not, was introduced. Early days, not a lot got done, a lot of theoretical work, but since the 1960s, the cost of computes, data platforms got better, and better algorithms started emerging. In the 60s, with the first AI program, the artificial intelligence program that played tic-tac-toe. In the 1997 was the sort of the defining moment. IBM's Deep Blue defeated Gary Kasparov. In 2011, the IBM's Watson became the first device or first computer to beat Jeopardy champion, which is an American show. In 2015, DeepMind, which is Google's DeepMind self-taught AI, beat 29 of the 49 Atari games. Meanwhile, what happened? The cost of computes went down by a factor of 1,000. It from $200 per million transistor, it became $50 in about 2010s, and now it's 5 cents. The platforms got from RDBMS to big data platforms, and the better algorithms came on the way. What did that do? That essentially ended up disrupting every industry. Today, if you look at some of the names on these slides are sort of known, but if you look at even simpler things, so for example, if you are a person who is enjoying social media, a lot of Facebook's, most of Facebook's contents today are powered by AI. If you're doing the shopping on Amazon and if you're buying things, the recommendation engines that you are seeing are powered by AI. If you are on a plane, most of your plane, a lot of the automated systems are powered by AI and the IoT devices. Then if you go to your sort of more everyday life, Medtronic is a company that looks at predictive diabetics management solution. Your Tesla, the self-driving car, are driven by AI. And even more basic stuff. There's a company called Stitch Fix, for example. They recommend, based on your pictures and how you look, they recommend the clothes you should be wearing. That's like a great help for men like me. Wealthfront is an AI-based robotic advisor, which essentially manages your money. So in all, in every sphere of your life, you're starting to see AI now starting to dominate. It's telling you what to wear. It's telling you where to put your money. It's serving you content. It's helping you in shopping. Or if you're in a plane or a car, it's sort of helping drive that. So what happened really? As a result of that, the power started shifting to the consumers. In the olden days, what would happen? If you look at the bank or the telcos like us, I work for Airtel, what would happen? You will have zillions and zillions of products, right? You will have many recharge options in case of telcos. In case of a bank, you will have loan products, you will have the deposit products, you'll have insurance products and so on. And there'll be a large number of them, and an army of people will either call you or email you or reach out to you in multiple channels trying to sell you the products that are fixed and defined. Today, what's happening is because there's so much input that are coming from consumers digitally, the world has now gotten from a asset products out model to a digital consumer in model. which means that you really need to understand the consumers better and better today in order to succeed. The consumer choices today are sort of personalized. You can be personalized in terms of your shopping, as I just said, in terms of your shopping habits or the content you consume. It's omni-channel. The same content you can consume on your phone, tablet, or on your TV, or in multiple other ways. And this is all being driven by data and AI. Unless the data and AI existed, the first two would not exist or would not be as effective. Today in India, we are in the situation where we are fortunate to have what I call as a planetary scale data. So in my prior life, I have worked in companies like Facebook, where we looked at large data, but today the data we are seeing is humongous. Just to give you an idea, in Airtel India in the 24 hours, we have 300 million plus consumers who consume about 100 petabytes of data. That sort of generates about 400 billion plus events. An event is something. So for example, if you have a phone and if you move with that phone about say 20 or 30 meters, now that's an event that gets registered with the network to say you have moved and I need to again run the algorithms to see how best to give you the experience, the network experience. You start a call and that gets logged to a network, that's an event. You browse for data, that's an event. So we look at about 400 billion, half a trillion events almost per day. That's humongous. So I'll now give you a little bit of an example what it really means. This is sort of exotic, right? For businesses, a lot of leading companies are doing a bunch of stuff. You know that the world has changed from a products out to a consumer in. But what does that really mean for a everyday business, like a telco, like a bank, like a normal grocery store, movie theater, any of them? So let's talk about a couple of problems that every single business has in the world. The first one is essentially the first question. If you're in any business, you ask the question, who are my customers, right? And you need to figure it out. Because the customers are coming from multiple channels, it's a hard problem. So a customer who may be calling your business versus a customer who is browsing recommendation of your business on a recommendation site or a review site, you need to know they're the same people. So suppose you are a retailer who is selling products on Amazon, right? You need to understand that the person who browsed for your or made a comment on Amazon about your products versus the person who called your the customer support line is the same person, so they can sort of better serve them. You also need to understand if they saw your ads on a TV or on any other digital channels. And then you need to figure out where do they live, work, and play. That's a powerful concept. If you understand where my consumer lives, you sort of know about their lifestyle. If you know where they work, you sort of not only understand their lifestyle, you can also understand their aspirations to some extent. Play is a concept. That's what do they do in between, right? You go to work, you live in your house probably 12 hours a day. You go to work about 8 hours a day, but 3 to 4 hours on every day, you are either commuting or you're going to a restaurant or you're going to a golf club and so on and so forth. If you understand all your locations and what you do there, sort of gives you a very enriched idea about who your customer is. Then based on that information, what you drive is products and services recommendation, right? And then one of the big deals that the consumer customers, everyone wants to do is prevent the churn of customers. Today, getting a customer is very expensive. Customers also have a short attention span and a fickle mindset, right? If you are not able to get that signal that they're going to churn away, you sort of would end up losing them before you know. So I'll give you a couple of quick examples from the businesses I've dealt with. The first example I'll give you, everyone talks about something called Customer 360, which is essentially seeing your customer as one. As I said, seeing your customer as across the business lines, you can figure out what their value is and serve them better. Now, the problem is that there's no single ID across lines of business. So for example, you may have a customer ID of your customer on Amazon as someone else, as Shantanu B01, and on your call center, the same person is calling as Shantanu Bhattacharya. And on Facebook, he may be leaving a comment as, Shanda_Tanu, or on Snapchat or on Instagram, he is doing yet another with other ID, right? Specifically in India, you have very poor addressing capabilities and name qualities also. The same name can be Shantanu, just my name, can be written as SANTNU, or in some of the databases, I also show up as an SHANTNU. although I insist on spelling the first way. So there's, it's hard to sort of disambiguate. No, it's the same Shantanu, right? So what do? You essentially use a massive amount of computes every day, right? You look at the deterministic matching. Deterministic matches are things like logins and email IDs, where, Shantanu has one email, here's a login, you sort of know what it is, or a phone number. Then the area that gets really exciting is the probabilistic matching. What are the probabilities that if they're coming from the same IP addresses, devices, or browser type, or physical addresses, what are the likelihood that they're same people? So I'll give you an example. In business unit 1, and these are real examples. Your address is written as 138 Defense Enclave, Vikas Mark, New Delhi, 11092. From the people in the audience who are from Delhi, you would recognize what this address is. The same business unit 2. So it could be, the first one could be a brick and mortar store. The second one could be the online store, right? It says house number 138, Defense Enclave, and this happens very often when a third party is capturing the information. Opposite Rajdhani Enclave, Delhi 11092. Now a machine has to know that house 138 and 138, in the third case 138F/F, which in Delhi stands for first floor, are essentially the same thing, right? Spelling mistakes, defense and defense. Then location in India, Vikas Mark, opposite Rajdhani Enclave and near main road. A machine has to understand all of them are same things. Now, once we deploy this algorithm, it says, look, there's a probability that 96% probability that this is the same person. So what happens when you figure out when you figure out that, right? A beautiful avenue opens up. What you thought were 34 accounts across your business lines, you can suddenly see that these are really 10 people. And for example, the names are made up, but this is a real example of multiple accounts. Mr. Nitin Suri, all of a sudden looks like a heavy hitter. So is Mr. Surinder Kumar Singh and Mr. Vivek Khare, right? All on a sudden, but if you looked at just Vivek Khare's spent on the blue item, you would not think of him being a big customer, right? On the dark blue item, or that business unit, he's spending a lot of money, right? If you looked at Nitin Suri's just the blue item, the light pale blue item, it's only a 299 rupees per month spent. You would not probably even take him as a top 10% of your customers, right? So all of a sudden, you get a view of account spending, customers, satisfaction, complaints, all of that stuff. The second one, churn. So I just gave an example of, talked about what churn is all about. Here, the compute is again very interesting, right? So for example, if you look at, this is an example from one of the businesses I've worked in. This is an app. So you're getting 70 plus signals from customers, device, network, the customer's other actions on the web, device, and network. Has a large customer base. And if you look at the data sets, if you build the models, you look at the errors in the models and so on and so off, there are 100 billion possible combinations, right? And when you do 1,000 iterations of calculation to reduce the errors, you are essentially seeing billions and billions of, actually, hundreds of billions and thousands of billions of computes. But what does the compute give you? It actually gives you models where you can precisely predict with 77% accuracy. 2 weeks in advance, you can tell a customer is going to go away. That's a massively powerful information, because then you can start intervening. You can start giving them better offers. Someone can call from your business, asking them how things are. Very often customers don't want to leave. It's, businesses by their inaction, in some sense, force them to leave or enable them to leave. When you have that powerful information in 2 weeks in advance, that someone's, on a monthly sort of billing and he's going to leave, you can do enough intervention. You have 50% of the cycle left to keep him as a happy customer. So these are some of the simpler examples I gave, but the potential and the results of these are enormous. So we just looked at some of the data, right? So for example, applications of data science today in the industry is very, very early still. But the upside for digitizing, which is what is happening in the post-COVID world, the businesses are getting digitized and businesses are getting powered with data. The upside is massive. We looked at the data last year and we said, look, if in a very basic, if you just look at, for example, the address data in India and clean that up and figure out a way to sort of figure out where everyone lives, the life, work, and play, as well as the 360 view of the customer. Just in India, we can give to India as a nation as an example. we can give $12 to $15 billion in GDP every year, about 0.5% of GDP in the near term. We didn't do a compute for or the calculation for the GDP in the longer term, but just doing basic stuff that the information that's available today can add to India's GDP by about 0.5% in the near term. So the potentials are enormous. Data businesses are just starting. If a business hasn't started yet, there's nothing to sort of worry about it or be really worried about it, because pretty much every business today is starting, and the COVID time is the best time to sort of disrupt your business and think about disrupting your business before others do it. The next 4 years is going to be the phase when 4 to 5 years when most businesses in the world will get digitized, and the leading ones that are powering themselves with data will sort of power ahead of others.
Thank you, Santanu. To attend the next Lightning Talk session, please return to the virtual platform's auditorium section.